as I said earlier, the second half of this meeting is really, this is not specific to pre-construction meetings. The second half of this meeting is intended to help us all have more effective meetings in whatever capacity they are. So as contractors, I'm going to have Kerri Tietgen here to speak about how to conduct an effective meeting. But as contractors, as we have questions specifically about pre-construction meetings, feel free to still ask questions about how that could apply, and we can have a discussion about that. Kerri's going to talk generics about what happens in a meeting and how you make meetings effective. But again, it's our meetings, and so it's your responsibility to learn how to do this. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kerri.
All right. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. Well, thank you. How exciting to be here with you all after you've just been fed. There's no windows, and we're here to talk about meetings. Isn't that exciting and perfect for nap time in the afternoon? So my job is to just visit with you, and a lot of these things are not necessarily going to be rocket science or things that you don't already know, but we're just going to review some kind of essentials in having a great meeting. So how many of you, raise your hands if this is going to keep your energy going and your blood flowing, that kind of thing. How many of you love meetings? They are super fun. You can't wait to get to your next one. They're all super productive and engaging, and you get a ton done. How many of you would rather go to the dentist? Yes, okay. So why is that? Why do you think that happens? Why did I not have a whole bunch of hands raised saying, I love going to meetings, they're so much fun, I can't wait for my next one? What do you think happens? Dead silence. Everyone looks down, hoping I don't call on them. Why do you think? What happens with meetings today? Why are they not super exciting?
They're not productive.
They're not productive. Why are they not productive? They're not organized. Okay, what else?
People aren't prepared.
People aren't prepared. Okay, what else?
They don't know exactly what they're meeting for.
Yeah, we don't necessarily know what the meeting's for. All these different types of things happen, and it's all systematic because we're busy people, right? Right? How many of you have, I think, sit around in the day and think, gosh, I wish I had more work to do because I've got these 3 extra hours in my day here that I've got to, I told my husband or told my wife I was going to be at the office, and I just don't know what to do with it. So, gosh, what should I do for that 3 hours? Anyone in that boat? Or anyone else that's like me that says, oh my gosh, if I could only have 3 more hours where nobody else was functioning, time stopped, and I just had that 3 hours to be productive, life would be great every day. How many? Raise the hands. All right, yes, so a lot of us are like that. Unfortunately, when we think about meetings, one of the things we've got to think about is who they're created for. Okay, we've got to realize meetings are expensive. They are one of the most expensive things that an organization has, and it's not something that we measure. Okay, so I want you can start thinking about the mental math, or you can write it down in front of you, but think about what percentage of your time is spent in meetings. Okay, and you can think about that in terms of number of hours. How many of those are ineffective meetings? Okay, how many hours a day is that? Okay, take that times 5 for the week. Okay, take that times 52 for the number of weeks we have in the year. And then take your salary, your hourly rate, and think about that, and not everyone gets paid as great as you do, I'm sure, so because your organization pays the best, so you can reduce that by however much, 20%, and then take that times 120 or 150 of the number of people that are in this room. Starts adding up, right? Now it's gotten pretty expensive, plus our number one most important, most expensive asset that we all hold is time. It's the only thing we can't buy more of. Right? The clock is ticking, and so we've got to be careful, and there's a real importance to making sure that our meetings are effective. Now I want you to think about one of the key components of a meeting is people, okay? So it's like leadership, it'd be great if, I'd love leadership if it weren't for all the people. Meetings would be great too if it weren't for all the people. If it could just be with me and I could get a lot of things done, everyone would be in agreement, we'd have a lot of great conversations, great feedback, great controversy, that kind of thing, but yeah, it gets complicated because of people. So I'm going to have you stand up. There are different types of people, and we can categorize people kind of into 4 different groups. One group of people is what I call they are kind of the driven, they love challenge, they love to, when a problem comes and is on the table, they jump right into that problem. Okay, they are an act now, ask permission later. Do now, we'll figure it out as we go, let's just act. It's all about the end goal. Does that sound like anyone? They love the challenge. How many of you are that? If that sounds like you, stand up. This is just to make sure you're still staying awake. If that sounds like you love a challenge, you love the end goal, you love to dig into things, and it doesn't really matter what, you just love to get into it. And if you're not unsure whether or not that applies to you, if I say, you know what, people from South Dakota, they'll never be able to, and I fill in the blank. Now that's hypothetical, I know, but if you start getting red around the collar, a little hot, and said, finish the sentence, Kerri, I dare you. If that sounds like you, if you felt that and your blood started going a little bit, if that's you, stand up real quick. Nobody? I'm waving my BS flag at you right now. If that sounds like you, stand up. Everyone's going to get a chance to stand up. Nobody? Nobody's like, okay. I've got one person.
Come on, I'm not the only one.
Oh, I know there's a couple. Okay, let me explain. Okay, I'll give you that, Kerri. I'll explain the rest of them, and then I'll give you all a chance to sort and select yourselves. The other group is somebody that likes influencing, and they like collaboration. They like people to get together. They like ideas. They like to talk things through, and they really want to know how everyone feels about it, what people think about it, and then we'll come to a common consensus. Okay, that's the second group of people. Okay, they're kind of the party or the people that walk into a party, into a room like this and say, hey, everybody, I'm here. The party can start because the fun is here, okay? Somebody that's not that is probably the person that slinks in the side and talks to their one or two friends and kind of communicates in another way. Or I was recently told the person that's really extreme on the other side doesn't even show up for the party. So if that sounds like you, the person that likes the collaboration, likes to talk things out, sometimes can be told that if their mouths aren't moving, they might not be thinking. They like to process things out loud. If that sounds like you, remember that, okay? The third group is somebody that really likes the pace of things. They like the steadiness of things. They're very good at processes and creating systems and following the system. And there's a reason that we do things A to B, A, B, C, and D. And we don't ever go out of that because it's tried and true. And why would you just change for the sake of change, right? I like to do that. I like to think first and act second. I am a person that when something comes up and when I have an idea, I think about it, I process it, I digest it, I mull it over for a while, and then later, once I've had time to do that and had quiet time to think about those things, I've got some really great things to add, okay? That's the third group. The fourth group is a person that they really like to know the details. They like to get into the nitty-gritty. They like to understand why. And they not only like to understand why, but they like to know that you thought of why. And they go all the way down. And when I say we're going to change everything about the schedule today, when I say that, the first thing you thought about is the next 5 steps and how it's going to impact the greater good. Okay? So those are the 4 groups. Now with that in mind, who would say that they are I love the challenge, I like to just jump in and act and figure things out on the fly, and it's all about the end goal, okay? Stand up. Yes, stand up, you can do it. You can do it, I know you can. Yes, stretch those legs. All right, there's a few of us, okay. Now, if you are in category 2, which says, I really like collaboration, I like to think out loud, I like to talk, I like to process things with groups. If that's you, stand up. Yes, stand up. You guys can join and go out for drinks afterwards tonight because I know you'll like that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a few of you. And if there aren't, maybe you just want to join that group because they're going to go out for drinks later. It's fun. The third group is the process people. They like the system. They like to think, process. They do a lot of internal processing of things. If that's your group, stand up. Good. There's a lot of you. Some of you are saying, I'm thinking about it. I'll let you know in an hour. If you're really extreme that way. Okay, now, and then the next group is people that really like to know the why. And they like the details. So they get into the nitty-gritty and all these great flow charts and information that you've gone over, you've already analyzed it prior to, and you love it, and you think about it, and you've got notes all over, and you are just really deep into the details and understanding that. If that's you, stand up. Okay. And there's a few of you that are undecided, and I get that, or maybe you're just tired and sleeping or whatever. But so, where did you see the lion's share of people stand up? What was the biggest group? The third group, right? Right? Third. And usually population studies say it's the fourth group. The third and fourth group make up about 60 to 70% of our population, which is really interesting because who do you think meetings are created for? What? Oh, who are meetings created for? Where you show up, there's a title in your inbox. Yep. There's a title, and you just show up, and you'll figure out what you're supposed to talk about then, and you'll talk about it. You'll solve problems. You'll do what you have to do in that time allotted, and it's usually an hour because that's what my Outlook calendar is set to, and so that's when we do things. It's all about who? Group 1 and Group 2. They love meetings. Love meetings, okay? Because I don't really have to do a lot of preparation. It's all about thinking on my feet. It's all about talking. It's all about making decisions quick, fast, on the fly, which is great, but we're missing 60 to 70% of our population by running meetings that way, right? And how many of you have meetings that way, where you kind of know the subject line, and you show up and you know the time allotted, which is usually an hour again, because Outlook defaults to an hour, whether it's talking about, changing the world, or if it's talking about changing toilet paper in the bathroom. It's an hour because that's what Outlook says, right? So yeah, we set meetings that way. So number 1, we've got an issue with meetings are expensive and we don't properly plan and prepare for them. What else limits meetings? Talked about time. Meetings are kind of boring, right? Anyone want to admit meetings are boring? If you don't want to raise your hand because your boss is here, blink real hard at me. I know what you're talking. You don't have to tell them that their meetings are boring. Right, so some of those types of things, and they lack drama. Meetings should really be, there's an author named Patrick Lencioni. He wrote a book called Death by Meeting, and he took a look and he said, why is it that we can go sit and watch a movie for 2 or 3 hours and be fine? We can sit in a dark theater, check our brain. We don't have to interact. We don't have to do anything. And we're fine. And we get done with the meeting and think, that was great. How long was that? And you can sit in a meeting, and it can be one of those 30-minute meetings, and it feels like forever. And it's just painful. And my biggest challenge is keeping my eyes open or shutting them without anybody noticing that and making it look like it's a big blink, right? So there's things, and he says that one of those reasons is we lack drama. And meetings should include drama, okay? So that's another challenge that we have. And then lack of contextual structure. We don't necessarily know what the purpose of the meeting is or what we're trying to get accomplished. There's a lot of different things that can happen in a meeting. One, a meeting can be just to persuade us to make a decision to think something differently. One can be a reporting meeting where they're telling us some information and all I need to do is digest it. Another one is asking for my input and something that I'm supposed to do. Or another meeting can be something that I need to act on. We don't differentiate, and so we don't always know how to participate, right? So one of the things that happens is drama. We need to learn how to embrace drama and create drama and give people safe boundaries for engaging in drama. And now I'm not telling you to go back to your offices and just have a all-out fight and make it ugly and bloody and that kind of thing, not by any means. But think about how to have some safe drama, okay? And what you need to be aware of is what's the right balance, okay? So let's talk about both areas. Let's talk about issues. Meetings should be about issues and how to solve them. They should not necessarily all be about just sharing information. With all the technology, we can share things through email or Dropbox or SharePoint or whatever else it might be. So think about how much drama we want to have. And then be aware of polarization. Do you know what I'm talking about when I talk about polarization? When one of us always gets on one side, the other one's always on the other side, and we're only talking about our extreme sides, and we don't really talk about the middle. Has anyone been on that? If anyone's been on Facebook, you see people are very polarized about social issues this week, and it's all one side or the other, and we don't really have a good way to talk about the middle. And so think about polarization and how to have a good conversation in the middle, okay? So, so when we think about communication, one of the things that I challenge you to do is think about communicating to be understood rather than to be right. When I communicate and when I'm starting talking and I want to be right, all I'm doing is firing and reloading, okay? So I shoot out my good information, all my brilliant thoughts, because I do have a lot of brilliant thoughts, contrary to what my husband believes, but I do have a lot of great thoughts. And so I shoot and fire all those great thoughts, and then when his mouth starts moving, I just go back into my brain and start reloading, thinking all the other things that I didn't get out the first time, I'm going to get out the second time, and I don't really listen to him. Have you ever been in a meeting like that? Yes, and it's all about reloading. So we want to talk about how to think about how to make sure that you have a neutral conversation, and not neutral, but a balanced conversation, which you give everybody the opportunity to talk about the pros of a situation, and everybody the opportunity and expectation to talk about the cons. And then the next thing is talk about, so what do we do about it? We might not be able to deal with the world that we live in, but what can we control, and what can we have some ideas about? The other thing, if you're wondering if your meetings are good and if they're effective, watch what happens after the meeting. Okay, watch where people go, follow, don't be weird about following, but you could follow them and see what kind of conversations happen. If you want to know that you have an ineffective meeting, this is what happens, is there's a meeting after the meeting. That happens either in the parking lot or in somebody's office or in the hallway on their way back to the meeting, and you know what I'm talking about? Yes, there's some smiles and nods. The meeting after the meeting is all the reasons why this won't work and why it won't happen and what we didn't think about, and I guess I'll be nice and just go along with it, but I really didn't think it was the best idea or the best solution. How many of you have been in a meeting like that? Okay, so how do we do that? Patrick Lencioni talks about there's a reason, there's some areas and things that we need to consider in order for that to be effective. Number one is we need to think about creating a trusting environment. And yeah, I'm a consultant and I talk about leadership and that kind of thing. So I do sometimes get all touchy-feely like rainbows and butterflies and that kind of thing. So I might be going a little too far that way. But I'm talking about a safe environment, which we talk about what are our game rules? How do we do this? If I don't have trust, I won't engage in a conversation. And if you want to know whether or not you have trust with those around you and it's a safe environment for you to communicate, it will be you'll notice it when you say, well, I don't know that will really work, but I don't know that they want my information, so I'll just sit here. Or, yeah, we try that again, but who am I? They don't really need to know, right? All those kinds of inner dialogue. That happens is because you don't necessarily trust that somebody actually wants your opinion, or they're going to do anything about it, or how everyone else is going to respond. So Lencioni talks about, number one, it's trust. And if you don't trust, then you don't engage in conflict. You don't engage with the right kind of conflict. There's a sense of artificial harmony. We in the Midwest are not only, we don't only kind of know about artificial harmony. It's not just a distant relative, but it's the family pet, which is we like to create this whole sense of we all get along, we all like it, we're all on the same page, we want to be kind and nice about it, to our detriment. And so if we don't have trust, I'm not going to engage in conflict. If I don't engage in conflict, I'm not really bought in and I'm not really committed to the results. I say I am, but I'm not really wholeheartedly committed to those results. And when that happens, this is an indicator. If you want to know whether or not you're in that boat, you'll find out that to-do item either never makes it to your to-do list or it's always the one thing that doesn't get accomplished. Because the reality is we have this amount of work to do in this amount of time, right? Not if that applies to you or if you're still awake or have to use the restroom, whatever you want to do. So yes, we've got this amount of time or this amount of things to do in this amount of time, right? And so if I'm not committed, guess what is on the list of things that didn't get done today? It's those things I didn't really believe in the first place, right? And how did that happen again? Because one, I didn't trust the group in order to have the right kind of conflict. If I don't have the right kind of conflict, then I'm not committed to what we're doing, and so I'm going to avoid accountability. I'm hoping nobody brings it up. I sure as heck am not going to bring it up because I'm hoping this is one of those meetings and one of those things that gets dropped to the side and we just go over it and I can kind of go with the direction that I already want to go. And then fifth is then we have or we don't get the results that we want. So all this is really up and fun and gloom and doom, right? I told you I like rainbows and butterflies, and here I'm telling you all the problems with meetings. So what are some of the best practices? And I'm sure you already know, but number one is create expectations of your meeting. Think about it, plan ahead, allow people to participate. Think about what do you want people to think as a result of the meeting? What are the things you want them to do? How do you want them to feel? And what do you want them to say? Those are 4 key components. And so as you're thinking about the outcome of the meeting, and it's always begin with the end in mind. What do we want to have happen? What do you want people to think, do, feel, and say are the 4 areas that you want to focus on. Because without that, we don't really know where we're going, right? So Has anyone seen that show, Alice in Wonderland, or read the book, or heard of it, or had somebody that did ever? Yeah? So she's walking, she's walking along, and she's in Wonderland trying to find her way, and she goes to this path, and she sees this path, and there's this fork in the road, and she sees this crazy cat, striped cat. Anyone know who the cat is? What's the name? Anyone? Anyone know the name? Yes, the Cheshire Cat. And he's sitting on a mushroom smoking a pipe. Kind of weird, I know, but he's doing that. And she says, well, which way do I go? Which road do I go to? And he says, well, where are you trying to go? And she goes, well, I'm not quite sure. And he says, well, then any road will take you there. One of the biggest faults that we have with meetings is we never give people a plan of where we're going and what we're trying to get accomplished. So people don't know how to engage, right? So number one, know what your outcomes are. Know what we're trying to do. 2, know the audience. Know your expectations for who is participating. If you are facilitating a meeting and you're an active partner or person in that, have somebody along that can take notes, because you're not going to be the right person to do that, right? Would you agree with that? How many of you use that practice already? A few of you, a couple of you. I really encourage you to do that. And whoever it is, and my guess is the cost of having somebody do that for that amount of time is hugely beneficial given what's at stake. And for them to capture that live as you're having the meeting, how great is that versus you going back? And some of you might use flip charts or notes, and you roll them up, you take them and you put them under your arm, take them back to the office, and you think you're going to retype them or make sense of them later. And then you go back to your office and you have 50 emails and 20 voicemails and 5 people lined up inside of your office telling you that the world is ending as we know it. And you go through all these things, and then the end of the day, and you've got all these things going on, and life happens, and then, oh yeah, Friday afternoon comes, you've got a little space in your day, and you go back and you look at those notes and they make no sense to you. Anyone want to admit that that happens? Blink again if you want to. You don't have to tell on yourself, but I know. So have somebody along with you to scribe that. If you know you're a facilitator, make sure that you've got that engaged. If you know that you want certain input from certain individuals, let them know. Plant the seed beforehand. Okay, create expectations. Number 2 is make sure that you prepare and allow other people to prepare. As I said, there's a small percentage of people that really function well with the show up and throw up meetings, which is we show up, we talk about all that we need to talk about, we throw up all our ideas, and we run and go off to our next one. There's about 60 to 70% of us that have to gather thoughts and plan beforehand. If you want them to participate, give them the chance to do that by letting them know an agenda ahead of time, letting them know issues or things that you want to have resolved as a result of the meeting. Let them know what you want to accomplish, all those types of things, so that they know how to be engaged. Okay? Give them time to process. And then 3, and how am I doing on time? Not quite sure. Okay. I'm running a sprinting marathon for you all. Number 3 is making sure that you've got a good wrap-up. Oftentimes we think because we discussed it, everybody's on the same page and we know what we're doing, and we run off to our next meeting, right? And sometimes we get in a rut of talking about a project and we end talking about our toothpaste. Have you ever done that, where you start talking and you get done and pretty soon you're talking about the kind of toothpaste you got at Walgreens last night on sale or whatever else? It has nothing to do, and so we don't necessarily know where we're going with the meeting. Okay, so make sure that you've got a good wrap-up, which is if you have somebody taking notes, put those notes up electronically as you're talking so everyone can see them being created as we go, and we get consensus around that, okay? Also ask some of my favorite questions is number 1 is this actionable? What we just talked about, can we all do this? Sometimes we talk about ideal world, sometimes we talk about problems, and we leave with no actions. So number 1 is ask, is this actionable? Number 2, is it reasonable? Okay, I know, and we all want to do our best, and we really want to do all these great pie-in-the-sky things, but sometimes reality has to hit. And so let's talk about, is this reasonable for us to do this? And number 3, then who, what, when, how, why? Right? Make sure those questions are answered. Make sure we know who is following up on each thing. Because there's this ambiguous, this fake person that sometimes exists, that person's just going to do it. and it's kind of the dumping hole in the ground. It's the dark hole of the meeting where everything gets assigned to, but nobody picks it up and runs with it. Anyone relate to that? Yes? Okay. So ask those kinds of questions. Like I said, have someone else confirm those and do those. And when you do that, and if somebody just puts up their Word document and types it, then you can send it and you can now have it, and you have the ability to have that in your office before you even get back. It's sitting there in your inbox. We all know what we agreed to, all those types of things. Okay? Because with that master set of notes, we also know when we come back together what we agreed on. Right? Nothing's more frustrating than going to a meeting and spending the first 30 or 45 minutes of an hour meeting trying to remember what we just talked about at the last one. Yes, that only happens in my world. Never mind, you guys don't. You're much better at that than I am, right? So any other thoughts, comments, questions? Know your audience. Again, prepare. What else did I talk about? Prepare what? Anything? Know your role, right? Create some conflict, and then make sure that you've got a good wrap-up. So it's all good. Hopefully that's good information for you all. Nothing brand new or super, lightning bolts coming down. But on the other hand, it's common sense. Unfortunately, it's not common practice, right? So my key is make sure that you create an environment and an opportunity for everybody to be involved, because oftentimes we miss people, right? So am I good on time? I don't know where I'm at. I was given a limited time, so I usually like to talk for hours and hours and hours, and I'm trying to be concise with what we're talking. Well, what could I talk about? They're very effective. Here's the other thing I'll tell you. If you think about what your meeting is, and okay, this is going to be your bold move, go against your Outlook calendar, okay? So schedule a meeting for, maybe an hour and a half, or only 30 minutes, or only 15 minutes, or whatever it is. So think about what needs to happen. What kind of project is it? If it's a big project or something big that you're talking about, schedule a whole 4 hours for it. And if it's not, schedule 30 minutes for it. One of my clients is a television station, and they have taught me huge things about the essence of time. And they count not only, they said, well, we've got a whole bunch of time here. A whole bunch of time at a TV station is 5 minutes, or a minute and 30 seconds. Or they add buffers in, they add 45-second buffers just in case they're running over for different things. It's a huge new concept to me. I was a slave to my hour time. So think about the amount of time that you really need to use, and here's the best gift you can give to people, not only having an effective meeting, end early. If you can, end early. Everybody loves the gift of time back. So don't feel the need to use up space, but end early when you can. Huge gift. So, any other comments, questions, or thoughts? Yes?
How do you handle a situation where you're in a meeting and you need to have a group of people there, and you know that if a certain individual of this group attends, has a tendency to dominate the meeting and shut everybody down from feedback?
Schedule it when he's on vacation. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. That happens, right? Okay, so what do you think? Anyone have that situation or heard of that situation at your spouse's organization, not our own? Okay, so the question was, what happens if you've got one person that should be part of the meeting, but they dominate the meeting, or their comments shut down the participation of others? What are some key things to do? One of the things that you could do is make sure that you as a facilitator are calling and drawing out other information. This is the lead of the meeting, it's your meeting to control. You're the one in control of that meeting, and when you give that to your team, you lost all plans. So do some different types of things. One way that I do that is, because people don't necessarily like talking meetings, so I say, okay, here's a question that I've got. I want everybody to go around and report their thoughts. You've got 1 minute to do it. Okay? So it gets some different ideas. It keeps that person on a time zone or time frame, but it also engages other people. Or when that's happening, split people into groups, talk about something and come back, which allows us to get some different perspectives as well. The other thing is I have a rule that we can vent about problems, we can talk about problems, but if you vent one and if you talk about one, we have to talk about a solution. And we don't get off the hook. So it eliminates some of the, well, that's great, but everybody's just kind of, nobody wants to, this is, you know, that kind of conversation. Well, fine, so what are you going to do about it? It's your job. You brought it up, it's your job to solve it. You're either going to facilitate this conversation to create a solution, or you're in charge of creating a solution. Because we don't have time for gloom and doom, or we don't have time for hours of venting with nothing else. Yes, I would love world peace. It's not happening today, but here's what we can do. Okay? So that might be one thing. Is that kind of a couple keys? Okay. Any other questions? Good. Kerri, do you have thoughts in terms of how to relate this to conversation, or I'm putting you on the spot, I know.
No, that's okay. We were actually talking about this at the table beforehand about how this relates to pre-construction meetings. And Mark gave a good example of a project that he's going to get an award for again tonight. And, you know, really, one of the things that I've read and you kind of touched on here is that, you know, if you're going to have a meeting and let's say you designate 2 hours for a meeting, it's a more complicated project and you think it's going to be 2 hours, you know, the big thing is that the preparation before that meeting makes all the difference in the world. And it's not even about the meeting. He's talking about a great project that he had. And he said, you know, this is what happened on that project. Before the pre-construction meeting, I called the area engineer, or I called the engineering supervisor, and I said, what are the problems that you see on this? And he said, these are the 3 things I'm worried about. And I said, well, these are the 3 things that I'm worried about. And so you kind of knew what to talk about at the pre-construction meeting, and he had a great project because of it. So I think the point is that preparation for our projects and preparation for the meeting is going to make that meeting more successful.
Absolutely, good.
It was like just what you said. We created a problem, these are the issues, but then we found a solution.
Yep.
So when we came to the meeting, we were also talking about the solutions to the problems.
Right.
We listed the problems we had, here's some of the solutions, and we talked about the solutions if they would fit the problem.
Right, good. I like it, absolutely. Yeah, and my key is make sure that you understand the responsibility that you have as a meeting planner and facilitator in terms of people's time and investment. Make the best use of that and know that it's a gift. Their time is a gift. And so make the best use of time of that. If it's just presenting something that you could have emailed to them, email it. Right? Nobody wants to sit in that. Make sure that you're using all of your levels to the highest capabilities. Okay? So, well, good.
Making sure that they're prepared, that before they come, the right people are at the meeting. I know the key, you know, I think Mike talked about that in the presentation that he gave, is making sure that the key subcontractors, the key suppliers know if they have something to contribute and they can be part of the solution, they should be at the meeting. And even before the meeting, if you have some critical schedule issues, you know, maybe they need to be made aware of those issues so that they can be talking about those things beforehand. So again, the preparation is probably 90% of the game, making sure that we have that meeting prepared for so that we've got the right people there and the right people there to come up with the good solutions.
Right, and if you don't know why you're at a meeting, ask the question. Don't show up and be dead weight. Right, where you show up and say, I don't know why I'm here, but it's on my calendar, so I guess I have to be here. And you just sit. Right? Nothing's more annoying to the rest of the group, and nothing's more annoying for yourself. So if you don't know why you're there, ask, why am I here, and what do you want from me as part of that? It's not in a rude way, but it's a realistic way so that you can meet or exceed expectations, right? So, well, good. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you letting me be part of your day. If you have any further questions, Toby has my information. Kerri has information, contact. I can leave some cards too, but thank you.